It's November, and while all of us are scrambling around to write as much as we can this month, I thought I'd start things off a little slow and do the authortube newbie tag. So, hello, hi, my name is Ashley, but you can call me Ash. So I found out about authortube quite a while ago, but it was different then than how it looks now. At least the kind of content I watch is different. So back then, I would find a lot of information from published authors sharing advice, which was great. But now I'm finding more about people sharing their journey through the writing process. And it feels more of like a community, which I really love. And that's why I even decided to join authortube, because I love the sense of community that it really has now. So my short stories are different than the long form stories. For some reason, and I didn't even plan this, I just noticed this pattern, but when I write short stories, they're usually literary fiction with a focus on dysfunctional romantic relationships. I don't know why, that's just for some reason what I write. But for my longer stories, like the current novel I'm working on, I'm really getting into writing gothic fiction with a mixture of other genres like supernatural, dark academia, and fantasy. But at the end of the day, the core of all of my long form stories are gothic fiction. I'm definitely a plantster, but I'm moving slowly towards plotter territory, but I don't think I'm gonna get there soon. So besides my short stories, I've never completed a longer writing project. And I think part of that is because I was doing way too much pantsing, and I'm just not someone that actually can work well being a pantser. For some people that works well, for me, it does not. But last month, when I finally decided to start doing a bit more plotting for my current novel, I finished my first draft when I wasn't even expecting to finish it until the end of this year, and even that was pushing it. Granted, I did cut back on my original word count goal, but my current first draft has a beginning, middle, and end, which I've never been able to do before with a long form story. And then for draft two, I've written a 1 to 4 sentence summary of each section for Save the Cat. And so this actually has a beginning, middle, and end outlined as well, but even in more detail than my first draft, which kind of doesn't really have an end in terms of the outline. So I'm feeling really confident in being a planter and slowly going towards plotter territory. However, I still just love diving right into writing and then seeing what more or what new ideas generate from that. So I don't think I'll ever be a full-on plotter where I do a lot of plotting before I start writing, because I just love getting more ideas from writing. So yeah, I'm a planter. I keep on going back and forth between wanting to do traditional versus self-publishing. I would love to do traditional publishing. I think I would learn a lot from that experience, and even from the rejections I get from that experience, maybe my writing would be greatly improved by someone who is a professional, although I can still do that with self-publishing. And what I like with self-publishing is that I'll have so much more control over when my book gets released and how it looks in terms of the cover art and things like that. So it's kind of, I don't know. I think I'm leaning more towards self-publishing because I'll just have more overall control over my release. For example, I know other authors who have said they've been traditionally published. Their book is done, let's say early January, but it won't get released until the next year because their publisher just has certain books that are going to come out at certain times. And for me, I know I would just want my book to be out once it's done, not have to wait a long time. So that's the bigger appeal for self-publishing for me. But I can see myself trying to do some of my stories as traditionally published. So first, I want to say you're not going to get a lot of general writing advice from me because one, I haven't had my writing critiqued in a while, and two, I'm not published, so how do I know that any actual writing advice I give is good? And so I don't want to just put stuff out there to put it out there. I want to be helpful and give advice more so from experience or things that I'm actively learning using real references as examples. So a little series I was actually thinking of doing is learning things from literature. So for example, I've been reading a lot of Gothic books recently, and I'm noticing a lot of overlap in the villain, the atmosphere, things like that. And so I would love to just dissect different books and show how those authors portrayed their characters and worked on character development so that you can learn from that book. So, yes, it's advice, but it's advice based on someone else's writing. I'm just pointing it out. So, that's the kind of thing I want to do. And then this month in particular, it's November, it's NaNoWriMo or whatever challenge you're doing. I'm doing the Rough Draft Challenge by Heart Breathings or Sarah Cannon. And so I want to give weekly updates on how the challenge is going for me. Quick thing, I'm not doing a word count challenge, I'm doing a chapter challenge. So specifically, I want to finish one chapter a day so that I can finish all 27 chapters of my novel by the end of the month. That's my goal. And then other kinds of content is just me sharing my journey, the things I'm learning, the things I'm failing and succeeding at, so that we can all just feel like we're in this together and create a nice little community, because that's the main reason I joined authortube, was for this sense of community. So like a lot of people, I started writing when I was really young. The earliest I can think is middle school. I would just write in my little composition notebook in the middle of English class, all kinds of little stories. I don't remember what any of them were about. I can just remember it started off with me writing down song lyrics because sometimes I just couldn't focus in class. And then it evolved to me writing stories based on those song lyrics. But yeah, I can't remember what any of the stories were actually about. The first story that I can remember writing was fan fiction. So I used to write fan fiction back in the day, but like I said earlier, I've never finished a long story. So I just have a bunch of unfinished fan fiction out there in the world. As a millennial, I grew up reading Harry Potter, so I would say J.K. Rowling is the first author that inspired me to get into writing and really got me into the whole fantasy world. However, there are authors like Edgar Allan Poe, V.C. Andrews, Ellen Hopkins, and Agatha Christie, whose writing style inspired me. And they're who I more so want to emulate my writing after. I don't want to write like Edgar Allan Poe, but I want to write the kinds of stories that he writes. He writes a lot of very gothic stories, and I didn't know back then that Edgar Allan Poe and V.C. Andrews were gothic writers. And now, years later, I realized I want to get into gothic writing. And, those are the kind of books I read when I was younger. So those authors inspired the kinds of stories that I want to tell. I don't really have a writing schedule. I just try to write something every day, even if it's only for 5 minutes, because it usually will turn into at least 10 minutes or at least 15, 20, 30 plus minutes. So yeah, I don't have a writing schedule, but when I'm sitting down doing nothing for too long, I start to think to myself, I could be doing something productive right now. I feel rested. I'm not tired. I've been sitting down for a while. Let me go do some writing. So that's usually when I write. I usually write right here at my desk because that's also where I work. I'm just used to sitting there. My whole computer setup is there. However, when I know I'm going to do a longer writing session, especially on the weekends, I'll unplug my laptop and I'll go sit on my couch because it's so comfortable. I can put on a nice YouTube video on the TV, get my snacks together, get under a blanket, and it's really cozy. So weekends, I'll usually try to write on the couch, but day to day, I'll write behind me. However, I do want to try going to like the library or the park or a coffee shop. I see a lot of people do that and they have really productive writing sessions. I do feel like I could end up getting distracted and not writing as much as I want, but I won't know until I try. So yeah, that's kind of a goal of mine as we're getting into the warmer months. Also, by the way, I'm in New Zealand, so sometimes things might seem out of order or like they're a day ahead of when things are actually happening for everyone else in the US. So yeah, it's getting warmer here, so I should hopefully soon be out and about trying to write in other places. I've kind of already alluded to this, but I'm excited to be part of a community. I've already talked to a few of you in comments on my other videos, and every time you leave a comment, I'm so excited because I feel like we're just forming our own little community over here, and it's so encouraging. It's really helping me continue to write, and I love knowing what you all are writing and what you're reading and what you're interested in. So yeah, I'm just really excited to be part of a community and continuing to meet new people, talk to people, and just form connections. So if you're a writer and you haven't done the author newbie tag, I highly recommend doing it and joining the community.